Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
I'm pretty sure it's still January as you guys are hearing this. I think this comes out like the very
The
last day.
last day, the
Yes.
31st.
Which is also my husband's birthday. So if you guys are listening to this the day it comes out, it is my husband's birthday. Um, but I normally, and we've talked about this before, how January feels like the longest month. Like it just like stretches and
hmm
stretches, and then like February comes, and then all of a sudden it's
And then it's
Thanksgiving.
January again.
Yeah. But I feel like this January has gone by really quickly. I don't know about you, Courtney, but
No.
today's the 22nd. No, I don't know. And maybe it's just because I've been so busy that like I haven't
hmm
had any time to like chill. And I'm like, how is it the 22nd of January at the time we were recording this? Like, I feel like it was New Year's yesterday.
Yeah, we've had like a lot of plans too, like a lot of birthdays, a lot of things
Yeah.
going on. But I'm still just like, how do we still have 13, 12 days left in January? Like, I feel like New Year's was like 3 years ago at this point.
Really? That is so wild. But see,
It
we were
feels so
also
far away.
Yeah, we were also out of town the last 2 weekends. So this is our
hmm
first like weekend actually in our new house since we moved here. And this is the first weekend that I've like had some downtime and I was like, oh, I can work on some podcast research. I can read a book. I can watch a TV show because there aren't 10 million things to do like there have been in the
hmm
last, 3 weeks. I don't think we talked about this on the pod last week. It may have just been me and you, but talking about like hanging stuff around the house and like I finally gotten most of my stuff hung up because that's been the big thing that's like lingering. But I'm like, I just need to get this done, and then I can feel like
hmm
because I can't relax when there's like stuff to do. Like I'm not a person that's like,
hmm
oh, I'll take a break, and then like no, I need to do all the shit, and then I'll take my break at the end when it's
Yeah.
so yeah, so it's one of those like I can't focus on doing other things because there's other stuff that needs to be done, but then stuff comes up and I can't get that done. It's just like this endless cycle. So
Yeah. We've been busy. Like we were out of town like the last week of 2022 and we were like when we get back we're chilling, but then it was like my mom's birthday and
mhm.
then like we hadn't seen other people and so we had to like see them, and there was like
Yeah.
Carolina's birthday. So this weekend we were like we have left the house for one dinner with friends and that's it, and we're like we're sitting
Yeah.
on the couch, we're not moving, we're just chilling because we our bodies have not adjusted. And even the week we
Yeah.
came back, like I had a hair appointment, Kevin had a work dinner. We did that.
Yeah.
Like it was literally like every day was just something. And I'm just like, I'm not leaving my couch. I'm
No.
sitting and I'm napping.
You always need time to just like decompress. Even though I'm a little offended, I invited Courtney and Kevin over today for like our first party since we lived here. And Courtney's like, nah, I'm good. And I'm like, okay.
Sorry.
I mean, I have a nice bed here. You could just take a
I
nap
can't
here.
put on real pants. I can't put on real pants today. It's just not the
You
vibe.
never have to wear real pants to my house, Courtney. I thought this was understood.
Yeah, but it's, some days you just need,
I feel that.
yeah, it's after that I'll
Okay,
get back up and
I'm gonna pull a Ted Mosby and I'm just gonna keep throwing parties until you show up.
until I show up.
The party continues tomorrow.
See, this is when you can see like the real kind of flaky Courtney who's like, yeah, I'm not gonna come. Now that you live here, you see the real me where I'm just like, yeah, I'm not gonna be there.
I know when I'm here like a few times a year, like Courtney will come to whatever the hell I'm doing, but she's like, oh, I can see
Yeah.
you anytime. No, I'm gonna
Yeah.
pass.
I'll see you tomorrow. I will see you tomorrow at dance.
I'm guessing like I did see Courtney yesterday and I will see Courtney tomorrow. So I guess
And you'll
it's
see
okay.
me next Friday and next Saturday, and we
That's
record on
true.
Sunday. And then you'll see me possibly Monday if you come to dance.
That is true. Yeah. So we got plenty of
You'll get your fill of me.
I guess so.
But
um yeah, so let us know how your January is going or went if you listen to this tomorrow or later. Let us know if this feels like a typical January to you or if it's also flying by for you like it is for me.
yeah.
But we do have a couple of updates. So there are currently two missing hikers in Mount Baldy, which is in Southern California. So this, I'm pretty sure, only made major headlines because one of them is an actor, unfortunately, because the other guy, it's like, he's just listed as like a footnote in all the articles.
Yeah.
But one hiker is Bob Gregory, and then the other hiker is actor Julian Sands. So I know him from a random guest star appearance on Law and Order SVU, of course, but he's been in a ton of stuff. So he's, if you look at his IMDb, he's been in like a whole bunch of stuff. But they are both currently missing. It's been, I think, like 6 or 7 days at this point. So
it seems to have been a while.
Yeah, not looking great. There has been some inclement weather in the area, which is making the search more difficult, which is why it kind of keeps extending and could be part of the reason why they ended up lost. So hopefully we will have some news. Maybe by the time this comes out, there will be an update on that. But hopefully both of those hikers will be found, because it is just super scary, for them and all of their loved ones.
Is the inclement weather, is it like rain? Because I know California just got hit with like a bunch of rain.
It might be.
I didn't know if it, because
like
Southern California
mudslides.
doesn't usually get snow too much. I don't think that's more like northern area. But yeah, I wasn't sure, because I know like all the people I follow in LA are just like, what is happening? It's rained like 4 days in a row and we don't know how to handle it. Because it's like, this is not our normal. We don't know. Like, our city is not built for this.
Exactly. Like, their infrastructure is not made for that kind of rain. Like, other people can, be like, oh, it's just rain, blah, blah, blah. But like, one of my best friends lives in Southern California. And she's like, no, like when it rains, it's like things are washed out. Like, you cannot drive anywhere. Like, it's just not built for that kind of weather. So I bet I don't think the article I read specified, but I'm sure that's what it was.
Yeah. And then we have another update. So most of us remember the shooting that happened on the film Rust set that involved Alec Baldwin. So officially, Alec Baldwin and the movie's armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, are both charged with 1 count of involuntary manslaughter and 1 count of involuntary manslaughter in the commission of an unlawful act in the fatal Rust shooting of Halnya Hutchins. So to prove like the first count of like just involuntary manslaughter, they just have to show that there was some underlying negligence. Like, there doesn't have to be like intent or anything like that, just that there is some negligence that led to the gun going off and her dying. And it does carry an 18-month sentence penalty. So the second count of the involuntary manslaughter in the commission of an unlawful act is a little harder to prove, and they have to show there's more than just simple negligence in the death. And that count has a mandatory 5 years in prison. So Alec Baldwin was the one holding the gun that shot her. And he's very adamant that he did not pull the trigger. Like, from the beginning, he was like, I didn't pull it. Like, I swear I didn't pull it. But investigation showed the gun like could not have gone off unless the trigger was pulled, and it could have just been like an accident too. Like, we're not saying Alec Baldwin like purposely killed her or anything. Like, I do think this was just like, there was negligence that led to a very tragic accident. But like, I know also like sometimes if you're jumpy, like I literally just met my brother-in-law's girlfriend's brother who's in the military, and he's like, yeah, never put your finger on the trigger, because then if you get scared, it just goes off.
Yeah, exactly.
And he actually has a scar from where someone had shot a bullet and it like came back and ricocheted and hit him. And so he like talks about it to like everyone, where he's just like, you got to be careful, because like it can happen.
Yeah, Andrew says the same thing. He's like, the only time you put your finger on a trigger is if you are intending to shoot that weapon. Like, there's no, like, in that moment you were intending to shoot it is the only time you should put your finger on the trigger.
Yeah, which is something I never thought about, because I'm not like a gun person, but like it makes sense where it's like if you're holding it and then a loud bang happens and you just involuntarily clench.
Exactly.
So the assistant director on the film did take a plea deal for the counts of negligent use of a deadly weapon. He received a suspended sentence and 6 months probation. He admitted to not properly checking the gun before handing it to Hannah, who handed it to Alec. So I don't really know what will happen. I could see them both being found guilty of the involuntary manslaughter, because there is obviously some negligence in this case. I don't know if they will find more than just negligence. It's a maybe lot they have enough, but I know the victims' families like are happy, because they're like, I do think they should be held accountable, because even though it could have been an accident, like that's why involuntary manslaughter exists, because it's like it's an accident, but you did kill somebody.
But
like,
you still killed someone. Yeah, exactly.
So I guess we will see where that goes, if they take plea deals, if they go to trial, like what really happens. But yeah, pretty big update in that case.
Yeah. All right, so our sources for today's episode is a Wilmington Star News article, a Britannica.com article, an article from the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, and also an interview that was conducted with Benjamin Wantz and Wayne Moore at the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. So I guess you guys cannot guess where this takes place.
You couldn't guess it from the title either, I bet.
Yeah, exactly.
You had two guesses. Maybe more than two. I don't know how many Wilmingtons there are in the United States.
That's true. There are at least two. So 10 civil rights activists were arrested and wrongfully convicted in Wilmington, North Carolina, following a demonstration regarding school desegregation in 1971. They did spend years in prison for crimes they didn't commit and then became known as the Wilmington Ten. So I just want to say also that there's a couple of like backstories in this story. So there's kind of like three different stories kind of wrapped up in here because they all kind of led to this point. So on April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. actually canceled a visit to speak to the all-Black high school, Williston Senior High School in Wilmington, which I did not know that King was supposed to be in Wilmington on that day. So that's pretty wild. But he did decide to stay in Memphis, Tennessee to support Black sanitation workers who were currently on strike. And if that date sounds familiar to you, it's because Martin Luther King Jr. was murdered that day in Memphis. So King's death led to peaceful protests all over the country, including in Wilmington, where the protests were led by high school students. But sporadic riots did start breaking out across the city later that day and the next day. It's kind of unclear on like what really started the riots. Like nothing really says like who or what or whatever. But I mean, unfortunately, a lot of times, anytime you have a big group of people about a very emotionally charged event, that does tend to happen. So Governor Dan Moore deployed 800 National Guardsmen to the area, and the mayor did declare a curfew. So 200 people were arrested, 21 were injured, and there was about $200,000 in damages reported. So Wilmington did have a history of violence against the Black community, as do many cities, most, if not all cities in the United States. And so this goes back to the 1898 insurrection. So at this time, there was a strong Black community in Wilmington, and Black residents did work as policemen, firemen, and magistrates, and 3 out of the 10 city council members were Black. So that is pretty big for a city, especially in the South in 1898. So in August of that year, a local Black-owned newspaper called the Daily Record wrote that, quote, "Poor white men are careless in the matter of protecting their women, and our experience among poor white people in the country teaches us that women of that race are not any more particular in the matter of clandestine meetings with colored men than the white men with colored women." So basically, the editor was condemning lynching and pointing out that white men were more likely to rape Black women with impunity than Black men were to rape white women, because at the time it was a widely held belief that Black men were rapists and white women are in danger around Black men. And so the editor of this newspaper is saying, like, look, like white men are more likely to rape our Black women than the other way around. So this editorial obviously like enraged the white community and did lead to former Confederate officer and U.S. Congressman Alfred Moore Waddell calling for the removal of politicians that supported the Black community as Election Day approached, and did say that white citizens should, quote, choke the Cape Fear with carcasses if necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, just wow. So on Election Day this year, white supremacists patrolled Black neighborhoods to intimidate residents and prevent them from voting. However, the Black community did still maintain power in Wilmington's city government. So because of this, at 8 a.m. on November 10th, 500 white men met at the armory of the Wilmington Light Infantry, and Waddell led them to the Daily Record office. So they created the White Declaration of Independence, which stated, "We, the undersigned citizens, do hereby declare that we will no longer be ruled, and that will never again be ruled by men of African origin."
Oh.
Gross. So more people joined until there were about 2,000 white people marching the streets of Wilmington. So they invaded the building of this newspaper and set it on fire, and then posed for photos outside of the burning building. So shots were fired, and someone yelled that a white man had been killed. So now gunfire just like erupts everywhere. So a lot of the Black residents did hear what was happening and were able to flee the city, but many other Black residents were killed before they got the chance. So the current Republican mayor, and so if you remember from some of our previous episodes, the political parties at this time, were opposite, and the Republican Party was the name of the party that supported the integration of the Black community. So this Republican mayor had been elected just days before. So Mayor Silas P. Wright resigned under pressure, as did many other city council officers. And Waddell then took over as mayor, and other white supremacists took over other government positions as well. And members of the city council who did not resign were forced out of their offices and to the train station to push them out of town, literally physically removed them from office and put them on a train to get them out.
You know what this kind of makes me think of? It's a more extreme version of January 6th, 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what they were attempting to do, but it worked at this point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's just everything I'm thinking of, just being we're just going to storm in there and we're just going to take over.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah, exactly like that. So many of these rioters did hold positions of power in the community, and it did lead to the displacement of much of the Black community in Wilmington. So many more homes and businesses were set on fire, and a lot of Black residents were murdered. And obviously, records of this event are incomplete or just downright fabricated, with sources saying oh, it was just a few, or nothing happened, or, it's hard to get accurate counts of things like this when you had the majority in power that did not want this information, released.
Mm-hmm.
But it is estimated that around 60 Black residents were murdered that day. So another of the rioters, George Roundtree, served as chairman for the state legislative committee the next year and sponsored the grandfather clause that stated that male citizens could vote if they could read and write, or if their grandfather voted, which obviously excluded many Black residents. And again, many of the Black residents of Wilmington were forced out of the city after this insurrection.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of the first, major event against the Black community in Wilmington. So then in 1954, Brown versus Board of Education struck down the separate but equal ruling of Plessy versus Ferguson and called for schools to be desegregated. But many school boards in the South resisted and did keep segregated schools for at least a decade after this. So there were 2 white high schools in Wilmington. There was New Hanover and Hoggard, and one Black school called Williston. So when Wilmington schools finally desegregated in the summer of 1969, Black students were reassigned to New Hanover and Hoggard, and Williston just closed completely, which was a huge blow to the Black community. So although they were forced to go to this one school, they did take great pride in their school. This was their school, their community. Mm-hmm. They had their traditions there, and now it was just gone. And some of these students were interviewed decades later by the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, which is the interview that we mentioned at the top of the episode in our sources. And they did say, we just lost our community, all of our traditions. We were just uprooted into a community that didn't care about us and didn't accept us. It was just this huge shock to them, to the community as a whole. The school was also closed during the summer, so there was no warning and no transition period. So it wasn't oh, we'll slowly move you over, slowly integrate you. It was literally you left the school for the summer and then found out, oh, you're never going back there. So the students and the teachers didn't even have time to process and say goodbye to their schools and their community.
Yeah, because that's the thing is it was a segregated school, but it's you just closed it, and it's okay, so now I have to go to a school where people, 1, don't want me there, and 2, don't give a shit any of this. Exactly, leave it open and then let people go where they want to go.
Yeah, you didn't have to well, this is shut down completely, everybody go somewhere else. It's there was a much better way to handle this.
So the white high schools also resented the Black students coming to their schools. So there's just a lot of tension in the area at this time. I think we saw that kind of widespread across the US. It's just a lot of resentment, a lot of tension. So Black students who had been involved in clubs and sports at Williston were not allowed to participate at New Hanover and Hoggard. So again, now you're not segregated, but you're not equal either. So
exactly. You're okay, we'll force you into the schools with the white students, but you can't actually participate. You don't have any, you don't have the same opportunities, but you can be together. So you're welcome.
And teachers and employees at Williston were laid off, bringing even more economic trouble to the Black community in the area. So arguments became physical, and police were called out often over these racial tensions, and these spread from just the high schools to the city as a whole. And on December 18th, 1970, 18 Black students were arrested outside of New Hanover High School. And it was the last day of school before Christmas break. And a lot of students were hanging out outside the school near the local restaurant. And someone was supposedly throwing rocks. The police arrived and just arrested all of the Black students and had them charged with disorderly conduct. So it's like they just show up and they're like, all right, arrest the Black ones, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
which we see too often.
Yeah, one of the men in the interview that I mentioned, they talked about this this day, and he was like, yeah, he's like, everyone's just like, you know, hanging out together, like kind of a mixed group. And then, you know, he's like, I didn't even see people throwing rocks, but like supposedly someone called the police, and like they literally just arrived and arrested all the Black students. Like didn't see anyone doing anything, and just like, oh, well, you guys must be the problem.
Yeah. So, of course, tensions increased after students returned from the holiday break, and there were many fights amongst students. And anytime a white and a Black student were both involved, it was always the Black student that was suspended. So, like, that's the thing. It's like we have two students here and only one of them gets the punishment. And it's like always based on skin color, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So in January of 1971, hundreds of Black students boycotted the New Hanover County schools because of how they'd been treated. So Eugene Templeton, the white pastor of Gregory Congregational United Church of Christ, say that 10 times fast, offered the integrated church as a gathering place and like an alternative to school for these youth. And on February 1st, the National United Church of Christ Commission on Racial Justice sent Reverend Benjamin Chavis to Wilmington to help provide structure for these students and like organize a movement. So Chavis led speeches encouraging integration and demanding social justice, and 300 to 400 Black teenagers marched to City Hall and later to the county school's central offices, and all of these march and protest were peaceful, which is a constitutional right to peacefully protest. Might I remind you, in case you forgot. So, of course, anytime a group of Black people gather, the one organization that we never want to see always shows up, and that's the KKK. They always got to stick their noses where we don't want them. So a KKK affiliate called the Rights of White People arrived. I'm sorry, it's not funny. It's just like the rights of white people. Like, how are you oppressed? I'm sorry.
That's the Constitution. That's what gives you, the white people, all of your rights. Like, you don't need a separate organization.
Yeah, like I just want to clarify, like I'm not laughing at like this affiliate. It's just, it makes me think of like Parks and Rec when they're like men's rights. It's like, how are you oppressed at this moment?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, did not mean to laugh at that, but the audacity of a white man. So they arrived heavily armed and held meetings in public parks to intimidate the Black community. So on February 4th, gunfire was aimed at the Gregory Congregational Church, and someone shot at the Reverend. So Black protesters repeatedly asked City Hall to provide a citywide curfew because of this. They're like, this is like, everyone needs to be home, like this is not safe. But it was repeatedly denied. So Black students did take firearms with them back to the church, like to protect it. And they also made a statement to the public that if their demands weren't met by a certain time, they would take other action. So their demands included being allowed to participate in school sports and activities and hiring more Black teachers and administrators. They also wanted more Black history taught in school as well. They planned to not only boycott the schools, but the businesses downtown as well. So the police didn't believe the Black teenagers, even when Chavis showed them the bullet holes in the church. So the next day, they put a barricade around the church, but that didn't stop the KKK members from coming through. Reverend Vaughn got shot in the leg while the barricades were up, and those inside the church were holding workshops about peaceful protest and Black liberation. So again, like this church isn't doing anything like absurd. Like they're just holding workshops about peaceful protest, and Black liberation. Like it's nothing,
like they're literally just trying to get access to the same types of schooling. Like they want Black teachers, they want Black administrators, because they're like, cool, okay, like we're integrated, but like that doesn't really matter if like we don't have any role models to look up to, if we don't have our history being taught in school, if we can't participate in any of these extracurriculars. Like integration does not matter when we don't have these other things.
Yeah. So on February 6th, a convenience store near the church called Mike's Grocery was firebombed. So when police and firefighters respond, responded they were hit with sniper fire, supposedly from the roof of Gregory Congregational, and returned fire. So a Black teenager who was 17-year-old Stephen Corbett was armed and was shot and killed by police. So the next day, Harvey Cumber was killed in his truck near the church. Cumber was a white man who was armed with a pistol. No one was ever charged for the deaths of Corbett or Cumber. So rumors started that the Black teenagers were making bombs in the church and had access to dynamite. So at the time, Mayor Williams requested backup from the National Guard and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and they finally declared a curfew. So whenever the Black community was asking for it, denied it, but then they hear a rumor about bombs from the Black community, and they're like, oh, we need a curfew.
Oh, yep, we'll put it in place now. Doesn't matter that, like, there are literally bullet holes in this church from white people shooting at this Black group, but now that we think that they might be doing something in this church, now we'll put the curfew in place.
Yeah, and by this point, millions of dollars in damages were done to nearby homes and businesses from fire. So it's like a little too late here. And by March, police had a list of 16 people they believed participated in the shooting and firebombing. 10 of them were arrested and spent 10 months in jail before going to trial. So the only evidence in the case was the testimony of 3 Black teenagers, Alan Hall, Jerome Mitchell, and Eric Juniors. And the 10 people on trial would become known as the Wilmington Ten, and it included 8 Black high school students, Reverend Benjamin Chavis, and a white social worker named Ann Shepard Turner. So the 8 Black high school students were Willie Vereen, Wayne Moore, Marvin Patrick, William Joe Wright, Reginald Epps, Connie Tyndale, James McCoy, and Jerry Jacobs. So one witness admitted to receiving a mini bike in exchange for his testimony, and another witness was removed from the stand after recanting during cross-examination. But they were still allowed to use this statement, and his testimony, even though, during his cross-examination, he was just like, this is wrong.
He took it back, but they're still just like, oh, well, nope, you said it to begin with, so we can still use this.
And you also can't give a mini bike in exchange for a testimony. That's not allowed.
That's bribery. That does not work.
Yeah.
Witness intimidation, whatever you want to call it. That's not legal.
So the article did note that he had a history of mental illness. So this could possibly be a reason. They were like, oh, just ignore his recanting, whatever. But also at the same time, one of your 3 witnesses you're saying has a mental illness, and that's for the whole case kind of thing. Not saying people with mental illness are bad witnesses, but if they're also recanting, not very strong evidence there.
Yeah. You have nothing else that you can use for this evidence. You don't, because we'll see why, but
yeah. So all 3 witnesses also had pending charges against them at the time of their testimony. Again, bribery. So police came to them and asked them what they knew about the arson. So obviously they just told police what they wanted to hear, hoping it would reduce their own charges. They're just trying to whatever they can to benefit themselves. So they're just going to say whatever the police wants them to say, basically.
You have these 3 Black teenagers who all have pending charges, and then you have these white policemen coming in this community that we know is very racially charged, and they're like, oh, what do you know about this? And it's very clear that if you tell us what we want to hear, we'll make sure that your life is not a living hell.
Yeah. So one of the members of the jury was a known member of the KKK. And the judge asked him, can you disabuse your mind of the fact that you have been a member of this clan, this organization, all of your life? And the man answered yes and was allowed to sit on the jury.
I can't. I cannot. Wow.
Yeah. So the trial lasted 6 weeks before all 10 were convicted of felonious burning and conspiracy to assault emergency personnel in 1971. So their case quickly grew international attention, as many called them political prisoners. So the 9 men received sentences ranging from 29 to 34 years, which is quite extreme just for arson when nobody died. This is just for setting a fire with intent, not... Nobody dying, basically.
Exactly.
And Ann Shepard Turner was sentenced to 15 years as an accessory before the fact. The case did go before the Supreme Court in January of 1976, but they did refuse to hear it. So in 1977, 60 Minutes aired an episode about this case and suggested that the evidence against them had been fabricated. And in 1978, thousands of protesters marched in Washington, D.C., demanding their release. Amnesty International provided legal counsel to the 10 individuals in addition to bringing awareness to their case. So a lot of people, like, throughout the country are like, this is ridiculous. Like, you guys need to look at this. You need to do something about this.
Yeah.
Then North Carolina Governor James Hunt commuted their sentences in 1978, but would not pardon them. So the Wilmington Ten, who were still in prison, were released in 1979, and some of them had been let out early on parole. So Wayne Moore went on to complete a degree from Shaw University, and in 1980, their convictions were voided by the U.S. Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals on the basis of prosecutorial misconduct by Assistant District Attorney Jay Stroud. So they were like, they had been commuted, which is kind of like, you're still guilty, but you can get out of prison, kind of.
Yeah.
And then now they're like voiding their convictions where they're like, okay, but like, I think technically at that point they could have been retried technically. I don't know about statute of limitations, but you know. So it was revealed that Stroud had coached and bribed 3 Black witnesses and that he'd even forged the written statement on one of them. So literally
as blatantly wrong as you can get here.
Yeah. All 3 witnesses did later recant as well. They were like, we were forced, basically. We were coached. We were bribed. Our documents were forged. So on December 31st, 2012, yes, 2012, that's from 1980, 2012, that's a lot of years. Then North Carolina Governor Beverly Perdue officially pardoned the Wilmington Ten. 4 of the 10, Jerry Jacobs, Joe Wright, Ann Shepard Turner, and Connie Tyndall, had passed before their pardons. So 4 people had already died before they were officially pardoned, like from this quote unquote crime. In May of 2013, the living members of the group were awarded compensation for their years of wrongful imprisonment, ranging from $175,000 to $284,000. There was a case pending as of 2014, petitioning for the families of the deceased to receive compensation as well, but we can't really find anything about the resolution of that case. Like, I do hope they were awarded it, because it's like, we talk about this a lot, like the ripple effect of like going to prison. So it's like, you're in prison and you're missing out on years that you could be getting a degree, years you could be like at an entry-level job, you know, and it's really hard then when like you look at your resume and you're like, what's missing? And so it's just like, obviously it is nice to be awarded compensation, but it's like, what is the trickle effect on the future generations of these people wrongfully going to prison, you know? So like, how much money and loss of everything, like, did these families generationally suffer, like, from this one point, basically? So a group named the Wilmington Ten Foundation for Social Justice was established to improve racial relations in the city. And that is the case of the Wilmington Ten.
Yeah, and like you talked about, there were a lot of people that like Amnesty International got involved. There was the 60 Minutes episode, and like, if it did not receive this amount of international attention, I don't think it ever would have came to this, even though it took literally decades for them to actually be pardoned and to be awarded compensation for being wrongfully convicted. And so like, how many times, you know, is this happening where no one hears about it, and so there is never any justice for it? Especially, I feel like in this case, with it being 10 individuals versus like, you know, when you just have like individual people wrongfully convicted and your story doesn't receive that much attention. But yeah, just
unfortunately, it's like, we really want to believe the wrongful convictions are the exception, not the rule, but it's a lot of times happens so frequently, especially for the Black community, of just kind of being railroaded in court, not getting a fair trial, not getting fair representation, all that. Like, it still happens, and it's just absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, it really is. Like, it is way too frequent. Like you said, especially for the marginalized communities in this country, very disproportionately for them. So yeah, let us know what your thoughts are on this. If you guys know of, similar cases that you want us to cover regarding this. But Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that Kevin and I officially finished The Sopranos. We have been watching it for a very long time just because it's an hour-long show, so it just takes us a while. The ending, oh my God, I need to talk to anyone who's ever watched it about the ending. I'm not going to give spoilers because I know it's been out for like 20 years, but Kevin saw like a really big spoiler the day before we watched one of the episodes, and he was very upset. Like, it's a very, very big spoiler, like a big deal. And it was completely unnecessary, but not the point. But we finally finished it, and it is like a great show. Like, it's always known as like one of the best shows like of all time kind of thing. Like, it's whatever. And I do think it held up, and I think it was very interesting. And it was just a good watch. So if anyone's like interested in watching it, I would say go ahead because I really enjoyed it. But yeah, if you've watched The Sopranos and you want to talk about the ending or the last few episodes, just shoot me a DM or label it like, I don't know if Jacqueline will ever watch The Sopranos. So, but just in case she does, like, don't spoil it for her.
I mean, I might eventually, but also I feel like by the time I get to the ending, I'm not going to remember this conversation. So, it's probably okay.
That's true. I mean, it is like, I've heard a spoiler like about the ending like before I didn't know the like what happened leading up to how it ends, but like I'd heard about it. So yeah, it's crazy. It's memorable. It leaves you thinking. But it was a great show. So on to whatever's next for us. But that is my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
Yeah, that's super exciting. First of all, do you guys have a new show, or how are you going to pick your new? It's your turn, right? So what are you going to pick?
No, so Sopranos was my pick. So now it's Kevin's pick. But what we're going to do in the middle is catch up on like short seasons of things that we haven't watched. So we'll do that sometimes. Like, we want to watch White Lotus because we hadn't watched it yet because we're watching Sopranos. We need to catch up on American Horror Story. So we're going to do a few of those, and then it's Kevin's pick.
Okay. I thought Kevin picked Sopranos. My bad. Okay.
No, he picked Entourage. So it's really confusing because we have a 30-minute and an hour. So it gets muddled really easily. But yeah, so he's still debating what he's going to pick. Sounds like it's probably going to be either Breaking Bad or Lost. So it's probably one of those. Cool. And then we'll watch it for another year. Like we did. But
well, we will all stay tuned to see what you're going to watch next.
Yeah, I will keep you guys updated.
But yeah, so my perk of the week is that, so I think I've mentioned before, obviously that I work from home, and my husband's new job is also working from home. So we like share an office now, but it is a pretty big, office space. So we do have like our own, little areas. But we got new desks this week, and I'm super excited about them. Andrew has been wanting a new desk for a very long time. And like, he was like, we need to have matching desks. He's like, I want to get you a new desk too, because I just have this like crappy small desk. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, he did all the like research and picking out exactly what we were going to get. And like basically just got like standing legs, so it's like the electronic ones where you can like push a button and like set your settings, so you have like your sitting and your standing setting. So we got the legs, and then he just bought like countertops from Home Depot and like put them together, and then he added like a cup holder accessory, and like he got me this little like,
he's in his Bob the Builder era.
Yes, he's so excited. And like it has like a power strip that like you can attach to the bottom, so that way you can like wrap all your cords up and only have like one cord going into the wall, and like you don't have all these cables everywhere. A little like USB and like cord management thing that like he bought all he was very excited.
He bought all the accessories.
Yeah, it's really his perk of the week. I'm just kind of piggybacking on it.
Yeah, but you got the benefits from it.
Exactly. But it is a really nice desk. It's a lot bigger, so I have a lot more room, especially since I have like my work laptop and my personal laptop, and so I'm not having to like, literally before they were stacked on top of each other, so I just have to like put one on
like
top.
A fire hazard.
Right. It probably was not a good idea, but I don't have to do that anymore. And now I get to use my old small desk as my podcast recording desk, because I can't record in the office because there's no door, and Andrew is in there when the baby's not awake. So, I got to be stuck in the guest room. But I do have a nice big space for recording now. I can have my water on my desk. I don't have to put it on the floor.
Mhm.
I have like room for other stuff on the desk if I ever need any other notes while we're recording or
Yeah.
anything else. It's super exciting. But yeah, that is my perk of the week.
I just saw a TikTok from Anna X. I'm sure we all know her at this point. She's a pretty famous TikToker. But she was like talking about how her dream desk got delivered and she posted a video of it. And now I want it. But I also know that she's like a famous TikToker. And so it's probably very expensive and I can't afford it. But like basically it looks like sorry, this is a vocal medium. So I'll try to use my words. But it looks like just like a normal desk, like the 4 or whatever, but then it has a pull out where it becomes an L. So you can put the L back underneath and then it's just like a short little desk, or you can pull out the L and have a lot of room. And now I want that because I'm like, that would be perfect where you can just pull it out and put it back in. But I'm sure that desk is probably thousands of dollars.
Probably.
That I don't have. And I don't need to do that.
Courtney's out. We need to all go together for Courtney's next like 3 birthdays and buy her this desk.
Is that a tax write-off since I work from home?
I mean, it could be. You gotta look into that.
I do see people on TikTok being like, oh, like I put in like some of my rent, my internet, my supplies or whatever as tax write-offs because I work from home, but I don't want to fuck with the IRS like that without an accountant. So.
Well, it also depends on whether or not you itemize your deductions because you have to itemize your deductions in order to like deduct those things. So if you use like the standard deduction, so basically I think you'd have to have more than like $24,000 a year in deductions to itemize versus to use the standard deduction.
So you have to do that thing where like you keep all your receipts and like do it and not just, I ain't doing that. It ain't worth it. I'll just pay my rent.
It's a lot. Yeah.
But I'm not keeping all my receipts. I'm not working. But you
could reach out to your employer and be like, did you purchase your current desk or did they purchase your current desk? You did?
Yeah.
So I would reach out to them and be like, would you be willing to cover a portion of this desk because I don't have equipment that I need to work remotely? It's possible.
I mean, I will say there was one employee, not on my team, but on my coworkers' team, who tried to get our work to cover an office space rental for them. So, I mean, if she shot that shot, because she was like, I just live in like a very like basic home and I don't have room. And they were like, well, you do this as a work from home job. So that's not our problem, basically.
Yeah.
Like she wanted them to like rent out an office space for her.
And like that shit is very expensive.
Yeah. And they were just like, no, we'll just hire someone else who can have a desk.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, that was off the topic.
That's what we do. But you guys let us know about your TV show. If you guys have seen The Sopranos and you want to chat with Courtney about it, if you want to tell us about your desks, if you have nice, affordable desks that you want to send suggestions that is similar to what Courtney is looking for. As we decided last week, we're not going to list all of our socials because they are in the episode description. You guys know where to find us. But we do want to plug our Patreon in case you guys forgot about it. It is patreon.com/caffeinated You did have a new bonus episode that came out last Thursday. Lost my headphone. So you get bonus episodes once a month. We do, Google Hangouts. We do video episodes. We have, just other random perks that come along. If you guys have suggestions for perks, if you guys are currently patrons or looking to become patrons, we are always open to those ideas. So definitely reach out and let us know and, check out and see what we currently have going on over there.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've announced this on the regular podcast, but Jacqueline and I will be at CrimeCon. Our application to be like a podcast there is still pending. If it's denied, then we'll just be there as normal people repping all our gear. So if you want to come and like you're going to CrimeCon and you want to meet us, like message us and we'll like meet up. Don't stalk us. I don't think we have stalkers yet, but I mean, if you want to come to CrimeCon in Orlando in September and meet us, we will be there. So
yes, absolutely. And we will remind you many times between now and then. Don't worry, but just have it on your radar because you might want to go ahead and get tickets if you haven't already.
Yeah, that's true. But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee
and don't commit a crime.